So some weapons in Arena Breakout Infinite are really good in certain situations, but much worse in others. And learning how to play around the strengths of the weapon is actually a really fun part of using some of these builds. So in this video, I want to go over one of those weapons, probably one of the best examples of this, and this is the P90. Now the P90 is just one of those iconic SMGs in so many FPS games, and in Arena Breakout Infinite, it's actually a really good gun that I think is pretty slept on. One of the best parts about this weapon is 1000 RPM. This thing sprays out rounds, which can also be bad because the 5.7 caliber rounds are actually pretty expensive, and the weapon as a whole is decently expensive, more towards the top end. But the full build of this weapon has 92 vertical recoil, 96 horizontal, 71 ergo. This thing just basically doesn't have recoil and sprays out 1000 RPM. So as you could guess, short and more medium ranges, this thing shreds. But once you get the longer ranges, because this is technically like a pistol caliber, you're really not going to be killing people at longer ranges. In fact, I think I triple headshot somebody with like a tier 4 helmet at long ranges, and this didn't kill it even with tier 4 penning bullets. So this is definitely something that you have to maneuver around using its strengths. But with that being said, we can jump into the build. You're starting off with the P90 high performance stock. You're going up to the top, and we're going to be using the P90 striker upper receiver. And this can be one of the more annoying parts with the build. You really have to use a rail that's a bit higher up, so you can't have a bit of height over bore, but generally it's not going to be too bad anyway because you're spraying out so many rounds. Then you're going to be using the P90 50 round polymer magazine. You only have a 30 and a 50 rounder, and 1000 RPM, 30 rounds generally isn't enough. Then we're going down, we're using the lightweight tactical vertical front grip. Again, this thing's like 150 to 160k. So if you want to save quite a bit of money, you can use a B25 tilt front grip. It only reduces your vertical recoil by 2, but it'll usually be around half the price. So realistically, if you're actually trying to run this pretty consistently, I would definitely recommend going with the tilt grip. Then we're going to be using the dedicated P90 short barrel. And the reason we're using the short barrel instead of the long barrel is because you can't use a silencer with the long barrel, which is kind of sad. So if you want to run it loud, you could also go with the long barrel and just do that as well. But then we're using the P90 flash suppressor adapter, then that the P90 conventional suppressor. And then obviously on top of the receiver, you can use whatever sight you want to use. Usually you'll probably just be using red dots or hollow sights, but you can also use something like the 3.5x prism scope. You can't use the much bigger scopes on this, but something like a 3.5x prism is 1x 3.5x. So this can actually be a pretty decent sight for a weapon like this, or you could just stick with a hollow sight, which is going to be really good as well. Now, one of the downsides of this weapon is price, especially when it comes to the ammo. Now, if you're going to be using a fully built P90, I would recommend only using tier 4 or tier 5 ammo. You have a bunch of options with P90s actually, or with this caliber. You have a leg ammo as white ammo, you have a leg ammo as purple ammo, you have tier 3 penning ammo as purple ammo, which is really expensive for tier 3 penning. Then you have a tier 2 penning white ammo that is this weird in between, but generally I wouldn't really recommend any of these. I think L191 is kind of just too expensive for generally how good it is. But once you get up to SS190, which is tier 4 penning, it is generally a lot more expensive than other tier 4 penning rounds. As you can see, it's like 25 to 2700 a round, which is quite a bit more expensive, but that's tier 4 penning, 47 base damage. It has a high initial muzzle velocity, so you can actually hit things at decent ranges with this, but you're not really going to be killing them. And then it has 41 pen, 18 armor damage. So close to medium ranges, this is actually pretty good ammo, just quite a bit more expensive. But then if you go up to tier 5 penning, the tier 5 penning is actually around the same as other tier 5 penning, maybe even slightly cheaper some of the time. This is SS198. This is tier 5 penning, 43 base damage, 53 pen, 23 armor damage. So the way I see this, if you're running in lockdown mode, use SS190. This will be able to fight even tier 5 armor. If you're within the correct range, you should be using the weapon. And then if you're running forbidden, you can use SS198 because that will allow you to just shred tier 5, and you'll be able to face tier 6 armor with that as well. But that's the entirety of the best overall build for the P90. This is definitely one of those weapons that's just always fun to use. Even though the weapon build itself is pretty expensive compared to some other weapons, it's usually around 450 to 500,000. And the magazines are also pretty expensive for 50 rounders. And you'll probably want like at least 2 total 50 rounders. So those are expensive. As we went over, if you're using tier 4 ammo, that ammo is expensive. If you're using tier 5, it's the same same price the others, but tier 5 is really expensive as well. And you have 1000 RPM, so that expensive ammo goes pretty quick. It's a super fun weapon to use. And if you're in close or medium ranges, this thing does just shred people. Like if you're against tier 5 or below, the tier 4 penning ammo is going to shred people. And if you're using the tier 5 penning, pretty much anything at close ranges will just get shredded by this. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.